Nobody hands you a diploma for the version of you that shows up after school ends. And yet that version, the one who keeps learning long after the tests are over, is usually the one who ends up living the life everyone else only talks about. Think about that for a moment. The classroom with the biggest impact on your life may never have four walls. It might be a quiet corner with a notebook and a good book. It might be a long drive spent listening instead of scrolling. It might be a hard year that taught you something no lecture ever could. Here's the truth very few people want to hear. Success is not random. It is not a gift handed to a lucky few. It is built quietly and repeatedly by people who never stop becoming better than they were the year before. The biggest investment you will ever make is not a stock, a property, or a business idea. It is the raw material behind all three, your own mind. Every result you've ever produced started as a thought you were willing to think, a skill you were willing to build, a habit you were willing to repeat. Look around, and you'll notice something uncomfortable. The world does not wait for anyone to catch up. Entire industries rise and fall inside a decade. Tools that felt cutting edge 5 years ago are already outdated. Yet one asset refuses to depreciate. The person who keeps learning always has an edge over the person who decided they were finished. And here is the distinction that changes everything. Information sitting unused is not power. It is just clutter. Knowledge only becomes power the moment you apply it to a real decision, a real habit, a real day. Most people leave school assuming the learning part of life is now behind them. The ones who go on to build extraordinary results think the opposite way. To them, graduation was never the finish line. It was the starting gun. Every conversation, every mistake, every setback becomes raw material for growth. Life itself becomes the ongoing course they never stop attending. There is an old line worth repeating until it sinks in. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Easier circumstances rarely show up on demand. But a better version of you? That is something you can build deliberately, starting today. So how do you actually become better? You feed your mind on purpose instead of by accident. You trade a few easy questions for harder, more useful ones. You choose depth over distraction, even when distraction is louder and closer at hand. You decide, quietly and privately, to become a permanent student of your own life. Because the moment you stop learning is the same moment you stop growing. The gap between an average life and a remarkable one often comes down to one simple filter. What are you feeding your attention? Some people spend their evenings consuming things that entertain them for an hour and leave nothing behind. Others spend those same hours consuming things that quietly rebuild them. One path produces distraction. The other produces transformation. Nobody else gets to choose which one you take. If you are serious about changing your results, stop trying to simply work harder and start learning smarter. Stop chasing more income before you've built more capability, because in almost every case, your income will not outgrow your own personal growth. When you become more valuable, your circumstances tend to follow. So let's get specific. Over the next half hour, we're going to walk through what it actually looks like to educate yourself the way the most capable people in any field already do. A mindset built on daily learning, a habit of applying what you discover, and the discipline to keep doing it long after motivation fades. Start with one uncomfortable question. Who is actually responsible for your education from this point forward? Not your old teachers, not your employer, not your parents, not the economy. You. The instant you accept full ownership of your own growth, something shifts. Your development is no longer capped by a syllabus or a semester. It is capped only by how much you are willing to learn. Every field, from business to art to athletics, is full of people who share one habit in common. They never treated learning as something that ends. A diploma might get you through a door, but what you do with your own education after that is what determines how far you actually walk through it. Here is the mistake so many people make without realizing it. They treat school as the finish line. They graduate, take a job, and slowly stop stretching their thinking. Years pass, technology changes, opportunities shift, and they remain exactly where they started. Not because they lacked ability, but because they quietly stopped growing. Becoming better is rarely dramatic. It looks like studying instead of skimming, observing instead of assuming, listening instead of waiting for your turn to talk, staying curious about things you don't yet understand. Every single day offers another small chance to sharpen your thinking, if you're willing to take it. You are, right now, carrying one of the most powerful learning devices ever built, the phone in your pocket. You can spend hours on it feeding distraction, or you can spend those same hours acquiring a new skill, absorbing ideas from people who've already solved the problems you're facing. The device itself is neutral. What determines your future is how deliberately you use it. None of this happens without discipline. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you say you want to be. Nobody is going to check whether you finished the chapter. No alarm goes off reminding you to keep learning. There is no exam forcing your hand. You have to choose it quietly, again and again, long after the initial excitement fades. That single habit is often what separates the people who lead from the people who simply follow. People who are serious about growth stop asking, "What am I required to learn?" and start asking, "What should I learn next?" That shift in the question changes everything, because it turns growth into an open-ended pursuit instead of a finished assignment. There is always another skill worth building, another blind spot worth addressing, another perspective worth understanding. The moment you believe you've arrived is the moment your progress quietly stalls. Picture your mind less like a filing cabinet and more like a plot of land. Leave it unattended, and it fills with whatever grows on its own: doubt, excuses, borrowed opinions you never examined. Tend it deliberately, and it produces something else entirely: sharper judgment, steadier confidence, and opportunities you couldn't have manufactured on your own. What you consistently plant is what eventually shows up in your results. Stop telling yourself you don't have time to learn. Everyone gets the same 24 hours. What separates people is not the number of hours available, but how those hours get spent. 10 focus pages a day, one well-chosen podcast, one conversation with someone who knows more than you do. These small, unglamorous investments compound quietly into real expertise over time. Here's something worth sitting with. Your income can disappear overnight. Assets can lose their value. Circumstances can shift without warning. But what you've actually learned, what you genuinely understand, and who you've become through the process, none of that can be taken from you. Unlike most things you own, knowledge tends to grow the more you actually use it. So starting today, take full ownership of your own education. Stop waiting for someone else to hand you the next lesson. Become the one who assigns it to yourself. Read consistently. Ask sharper questions. Protect your curiosity. Because the single greatest investment available to you isn't out there in the market, it's inside your own thinking. And when you commit to learning for the rest of your life, you quietly remove the ceiling on what you're capable of becoming. Now, consider this. What if you could sit down for an hour with some of the sharpest minds who ever lived? Entrepreneurs who built industries from nothing. Leaders who guided people through impossible odds. Thinkers whose ideas outlived them by centuries. Would you take that seat if it were offered to you? Of course you would. And the surprising part is, you already have access. It's called a book. A book is not just paper and ink. It's someone's hard-earned experience, compressed into a few hundred pages, so you don't have to relive every one of their mistakes to learn the lesson. That is the real value of reading. It lets you borrow decades of insight without paying the full price of acquiring it firsthand. Most people only pick up a book when they're forced to. The people who go furthest read because they genuinely want to keep growing. They understand something simple but easy to overlook. If you want different results, you first need different thinking. And one of the fastest ways to shift your thinking is to change what you deliberately expose your mind to each day. Reading rarely transforms you overnight. It works slowly, one page and one idea at a time. You don't need to work through an entire library. You just need to stay consistent. A handful of pages a day, repeated over months, quietly reshapes how you see problems and opportunities alike. Treat your mind like an account that only grows through deposits. Every useful book is another deposit, Every well-applied idea adds to a form of wealth that has nothing to do with money, mental wealth, and in almost every case, mental wealth arrives before financial wealth does. Sharper thinking tends to open richer opportunities. Reading takes real discipline because distraction is always close by. Social feeds, endless video, background noise, all of it is competing loudly for your attention. Books, by comparison, ask for something quieter, your sustained focus. Choose carefully, because what holds your attention today is quietly shaping who you'll be a year from now. Don't read simply to reach the last page. Read to actually understand. Read to reflect on what you just took in. Read with the intent to use it. One idea you actually apply is worth far more than 100 you file away and forget. Knowledge sitting idle doesn't change anything. It only earns its value the moment it changes your behavior. Picture reading just 10 pages a day. On its own, that sounds almost too small to matter. But after a month, you've moved through hundreds of pages. After a year, several full books. After a few years, you've quietly built a mind stocked with insight. Most people never bother to acquire. Small, unremarkable habits, repeated consistently, tend to produce results that look anything but small. Be intentional about what you choose to read. Look for material on leadership, communication, discipline, character, and the handling of money. Study the biographies of people who built something meaningful. Not just their victories, but their failures and how they responded to them. The most capable people rarely learn everything the hard way themselves. They borrow insight from those who already paid that price. If you've ever said you don't enjoy reading, consider the possibility that you simply haven't found the right book yet. Look for material that challenges your assumptions, stretches your thinking, and occasionally makes you stop and reconsider something you believed was settled. A single well-timed idea can quietly redirect the next chapter of your life. So starting today, protect a slice of time for reading, even if it's only 15 minutes, even if it's only 10 pages. Keep at it, because every book you finish is one more brick in a stronger version of you. And the wider you expand your thinking, the wider your future tends to open up. Now here's a question worth asking honestly. Who has actually taught you the most in life? A professor? A mentor? Possibly. But if you look closely, you'll notice life itself has been teaching you all along. Every person you cross paths with knows something you don't. Every experience you go through carries a lesson buried somewhere inside it. The only real question is whether you're paying enough attention to catch it. People who achieve extraordinary things rarely stop learning, not because they know too little, but because they've accepted there will always be more to understand. They stay curious. They stay humble enough to admit they don't have it all figured out. Because the moment you assume you do, your growth quietly stops with you. Becoming better often comes down to asking better questions. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the more useful question is, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single shift turns setbacks into lessons, mistakes into insight, and hard seasons into preparation for whatever comes next. Nearly any experience becomes valuable the moment you decide to actually learn from it. Think about the range of people already in your life. Some inspire you. Some challenge you. Some frustrate you more than you'd like to admit. Nearly all of them, whether they realize it or not, are teaching you something. The ones doing well can show you what to move toward. The ones struggling can show you what to avoid. The patient ones model composure. The difficult ones test it. Very few encounters are truly wasted if you're willing to extract the lesson. Staying teachable takes its own kind of discipline. Ego says, "I already know this." Wisdom says, "There's still more here for me." Don't let success make you dismissive, and don't let failure make you bitter. Both, handled the right way, are preparing you for whatever comes next. Try listening more than you speak, and observing more than you judge. Some of the most useful lessons show up quietly, in a low-key conversation, in something you noticed but almost dismissed, in someone else's story if you're actually paying attention. Often, the most insightful person in a room isn't the one talking the most. It's the one asking the better question. Don't run from failure, study it instead. Nearly every mistake carries a lesson buried inside it, and nearly every setback points to something worth improving. Failure itself doesn't define you. Refusing to extract the lesson from it does. If you walked away wiser, you didn't really lose. You traded a setback for insight. Be deliberate about who you spend time around. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to think bigger and act with more intention. Attitudes spread. So do habits. The people closest to you quietly shape who you become, so choose that circle with real intention. Don't lose your curiosity along the way. Kids tend to learn fast because they ask constant questions. A lot of adults slow down simply because they stop asking. Stay curious. Read broadly. Listen closely. Observe carefully. Every single day is another small opportunity to know a little more than you did yesterday. Life keeps speaking, whether you notice or not. Sometimes through a win, sometimes through a disappointment, sometimes through an opportunity you didn't see coming. Don't rush past whatever it's trying to teach you. Sit with it, apply it, and let it move you forward. Every experience, handled the right way, is preparing you for the next stage of your life. So beginning today, treat yourself as a permanent student of life. Learn from the people around you. Learn from what goes right and what goes wrong. Keep a humble posture and an open mind, and keep asking one simple question: what can today teach me? Because the person who never stops learning never really stops growing. And the person who never stops growing rarely stops moving forward. Here's a question worth sitting with. What is one asset that no market crash can wipe out? What's one advantage that no one can take from you, and that only gets stronger with age? The answer is the same every time. What you've learned, the skills you've built, and the person you've become in the process. That is exactly why self-education ranks among the strongest advantages available to anyone willing to pursue it. The world isn't going to slow down and wait for you to catch up. New industries will keep appearing. Old skills will keep fading. Technology will keep shifting the ground beneath entire careers. Through all of it, one thing tends to hold its value: a person who refuses to stop learning. The more you learn, the more valuable you naturally become, and the more valuable you become, the more opportunity tends to find its way to you. Don't just wish circumstances were easier. Work on becoming someone better equipped to handle them, whatever they turn out to be. And one of the most reliable ways to do that is to stay in permanent student mode. Don't read because someone told you to. Read because your future genuinely depends on it. Don't wait until you need a skill to start learning it. Build it in advance, because preparation quietly builds confidence, and confidence tends to attract opportunity. Most people spend years pouring money and attention into things that lose value with time. Vehicles depreciate, devices become outdated, trends fade. But every hour you invest in your own mind keeps paying you back for the rest of your life. Knowledge appreciates. Wisdom compounds. Skills open doors that didn't exist before you built them. Very few investments offer that kind of return. Self-education, more than almost anything else, requires discipline. No one is assigning you homework anymore. No one is going to remind you to keep studying. You have to decide on your own that your growth matters. Even on the busy days, even on the tired days, even when nobody is watching to notice the difference. Real growth tends to start exactly there, in the moments no one else sees. Picture two people starting from the exact same opportunity. One stops learning the moment school ends. The other keeps reading, keeps asking questions, keeps refining their skills. 5 years later, they're nowhere near the same place. One has kept pace with a changing world. The other has quietly fallen behind. The gap was never about raw talent. It came down to who stayed committed to growing. Never assume you've learned enough. The moment you believe you have, you quietly cap what you're still capable of becoming. Stay humble, stay curious, stay open to being wrong. There is always another lesson, another skill, another angle that could make your thinking sharper and your life better. Your real competition was never the person next to you. It's the version of you from a year ago. Every book finished, every course completed, every meaningful conversation moves you one step past who you used to be. That, quietly and consistently, is what real progress actually looks like. One day, people may look at your confidence, your judgment, your ability to solve problems, and assume it came naturally. you'll know the real story. It wasn't a gift. It was thousands of unremarkable hours spent reading, thinking, applying, and adjusting, one ordinary day at a time. So from here forward, make learning part of how you identify yourself, not just something you occasionally schedule. Protect time for it. Read consistently. Listen with intention. Ask sharper questions. Apply what you take in. Because your greatest asset was never what you own. It's what you know, and more importantly, what you actually do with it. There's one more piece worth being honest about. Knowledge by itself won't change your life. A shelf full of books won't make you wise. Listening to enough motivational talks won't automatically make you successful. Only one thing reliably does: action. Knowledge only becomes valuable the moment it gets applied. A lot of people quietly become collectors of information. They read, they listen, they take notes, and then nothing changes, because they mistake the act of learning for actual progress. Learning matters, but learning without action is closer to entertainment than growth. Real education starts the moment you actually use what you picked up. Imagine studying a book on swimming from cover to cover. You memorize every stroke, every technique, every detail. Does that make you a swimmer? Not until you actually get in the water. Life tends to work the same way. Thinking prepares you, but action is what actually transforms you. Every lesson worth learning should lead somewhere. A decision, a new habit, a small shift in behavior. Never close a genuinely useful book without asking yourself what you're going to do differently because of it. That one question alone can quietly redirect the rest of your year. There is no perfect moment waiting for you further down the road. There is only the one in front of you right now. The best time to begin usually isn't when you feel fully ready. Confidence tends to show up after you act, not before it. Small actions, repeated consistently, tend to outperform big intentions that never get acted on. Read one chapter, apply one lesson, practice it today, repeat it tomorrow. It's simple, unglamorous, and surprisingly effective. That's how most extraordinary results actually get built. Don't be afraid of getting something wrong along the way. Be more concerned about never attempting it at all. The person who takes action almost always learns more than the person who only plans from the sidelines. Experience remains one of the most efficient teachers available, if you're willing to enroll. You don't need 100 new ideas to change your trajectory. You need one solid principle applied consistently until it becomes part of how you operate. So from today forward, read with purpose, listen with intention, and then put what you've learned to work immediately. Don't let good insight sit unused in a notebook. Let it show up in how you actually live. And here's the final thought worth carrying with you. Your greatest asset was never your income, your title, or your possessions. It's your mind. Everything else you'll ever build starts there first. Protect it, feed it deliberately, challenge it often, because the people who achieve remarkable things are rarely the most naturally gifted. They're simply the ones who refused to stop learning, refused to stop applying what they learned, and kept repeating that process long after it stopped feeling exciting. There will always be distractions competing for your attention. There will always be a convenient excuse waiting nearby. There will always be people who choose comfort over growth. You don't have to follow them. Choose the slower, steadier path, the one built on curiosity, discipline, and consistent application. It rarely looks impressive in the short term, but it tends to lead somewhere very few people ever actually reach. So don't wish your circumstances were easier. Work on becoming someone capable of handling whatever comes next. Read one more page today. Ask one more honest question. Apply one more lesson before the day ends. These small, unremarkable choices are quietly writing the next chapter of your life, and one day, when people call your results impressive or call you naturally talented, you'll know the real story. You simply never gave yourself permission to stop learning.